Shaylee Aussies for Yang here. So I wanted to do a video on welfare. I've been wanting to do this video for a while, and the reason I kind of want to do this is because more and more comments crop up from people about the welfare system and about how the freedom dividend would essentially be an opt-in program where you couldn't get your cash or cash-like benefits if you chose to get the freedom dividend. And I see a lot of people saying that this is a really negative thing. And I'm gonna buffer that because I actually think that a universal freedom dividend is 55,000 times better than any welfare program with red tape, bureaucracy, and means testing. And I'm going to explain a little bit why in terms of from my perspective as someone who has worked in the Australian welfare system. So just for a little bit of an understanding, how the Australian welfare system works is that if you are unemployed, you can go on what's called New Start allowance or youth allowance, depending on how old you are. And it equates to, I think not a whole lot. About $400 and something a fortnight, I think. But what my job was when I worked in the welfare industry, what I did was I was what's called an employment consultant. So I had people who would have to come to me, and I'd have a caseload of people, and I would have to try and get them work. So, and part of that person getting their benefit and getting their welfare was a requirement that they had to come and see me. Once a week or once a fortnight or whatever. And they had to look for X amount of jobs, and they weren't allowed to turn down any job that they didn't want. And there were all these little parameters of what they needed to do in order to keep their welfare. I found the whole system very soul-crushing for a number of reasons. One, I actually find that the people who need more help can't get more help or access to help. Two, I find that the system gets so incredibly gained, and there are a lot of people who abuse the system and rot it. And that was very, very frustrating, seeing people who genuinely needed help and assistance not be able to get it, whilst others were playing on, pretending to be separated or not married or for whatever reason, so that then they could have a husband with a six-figure income and then come in as a single person. And then there was also employer rorting. So what employers tend to do is the government offers these subsidies where they're like, if you get a long-term unemployed person a job, as a government, we'll give you money to place that person. But the thing is, they give you money incrementations at 4 weeks, 12 weeks, and sometimes 26 weeks. So what was essentially happening was that employers were taking on people for 4, 12, or 26 weeks and then dropping them and then grabbing the next person so that they could keep having a subsidy over and over and over. And there was absolutely nothing that we could do about it that was within the bounds. And what I also kind of discovered is that people don't know what they don't know. And there are a lot of factors outside of monetary factors that play into the issues that a lot of people on welfare have. A lot of it's not their fault, but some of it is because you have to have a bit of a level of personal responsibility. I just don't find it very empowering to just say everything that happens to me, I have no control over. But the reason I bring this all up is because if there was an option in Australia to have a universal basic income where everybody gets it, it would alleviate so many of the issues with the current welfare system. The stigma of welfare is really bad in Australia, really bad. If you don't have a job and you're on welfare, you're seen as a mooch. And you're seen as someone who's not contributing at all to society, and people are resentful and nasty towards people who are poor. And the reason they are is because they go, well, I'm working hard, I'm paying all these taxes, I'm doing it what I perceive as to be tough, and you're getting all of this for nothing. And so when you don't have that universality where everybody gets it, that's the breeding ground that you fester and you create. Also, the bureaucracy of it is so dehumanizing. It's dehumanizing for the people who work in it. It's dehumanizing for the people who have to go through it. The whole system just reeks of keeping people in that position. And what I find really sad is that a lot of the people I worked with really latched onto their benefits. And so they would intentionally not take opportunities out of fear of losing said benefit. And I found it so restrictive and just keeping people in that poverty level. The other thing that is a really awkward elephant in the room is that, especially in Australia, it's really freaking hard to get a job if you've been unemployed for more than 3 months. Like, really hard. I had heaps of people who really genuinely wanted to work, who really wanted to have a better life for themselves, but for whatever circumstances, weren't able to get a job. A lot of these people were not college educated. A lot of them had just had year 12 or year 10, and maybe they might have a couple of certificates here and there. But employers in this day and age are so incredibly picky about who they employ that a lot of people get left behind. And so what worries me about automation is that the bulk of the people who are going to be displaced are these people who are like, you know, anywhere from 30 to 60 years old who only have high school education. And it's not as easy as like it was 50 years ago where you could pretty much just like, there were jobs everywhere. And it was like if you walked into a store and said, oh, I'm really looking for a job, they'd be like, oh yeah, we'll give you a go. Like, but nowadays you've got to have multiple references. You've got to have a car license. Like the amount of jobs that require you to have a car and a car license. Sometimes you've got to have working with children's checks. You've got to have experience in the field that you're going for. So when you look at these retail and hospitality jobs that are going to get automated away, if, you know, these people try and transition, say they try to transition into another customer service role like reception or allied health, like in like what I do now in reception, if they've got no experience in that field, it's really freaking hard to get a job. Like, it's really hard. And no one acknowledges that, how hard it has become to get picked for a job. You got to have like multiple references. You need to have multiple like levels of experience, levels of longevity of work. Every single little thing they pick apart, they go through your socials. So there's all these layers that make it extra difficult for people to get work. And so as people get more and more displaced, I really do worry that a lot of these people are going to drop out of the workforce, because if people who aren't being automated away are struggling to get jobs where they do have experience in them, then what's it going to do for the automated people? And then on top of that, like the other biggest issue I had was the amount of casualization and gig economy, and basically just like all of these labor, what are they like? They're like these recruitment companies. We have heaps of them in Australia. And so what they do is they hire a bunch of people, and then when they're needed, they use them for like 40, 50 hours a week. And then when they're no longer needed, they just turf them. And they give them, 4 hours or 8 hours or nothing. There's no stability. And I think that's something that a lot of the older generation of people do not understand, is that for people my age, getting a stable job, being at a job like for the whole of your life is like not a thing anymore. It doesn't happen. And there is so much casualization to stop people like having to pay annual leave, sick leave. And because of the fact that, at some points there's lots of work and then other points there's not. So I was, getting people jobs, and then they'd be really excited, they'd be really happy. And then within 3 weeks, they're back on my doorstep because they were just used for 3 weeks and then turfed back into the system. And now their ego's taken a beat, their self-esteem has taken a beat, and they're feeling hopeless. And scarcity mindset is rampant through people on welfare. It's rampant with everyone, but it's especially rampant to the point where I had like 90 to 95% of people who I got jobs did not report their earnings to Centrelink, which is like our welfare program. They didn't report their earnings and they kept taking the Centrelink money. And it used to like make me so mad. I used to be like, why are these people doing this? Like, I've worked my ass off for you. I've got you set up. I've got you in a job, and now you're just going to take my tax money. Like, it used to drive me so mad, but I understand it because they're so petrified because there's no real safety net that they feel like they have to kind of keep their, their hand in case something goes wrong. So overall, there are so many elements in the workforce that have created a lot of instability and insecurity for all sorts of people in all sorts of industries. And as over the next decade, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. So you have kind of two options. You can put everyone on welfare and on means testing, where they're going to have to constantly prove that they're not able to earn anything in order to survive. Or you can create an economic floor for people that's empowering them and letting them make their own decisions and not have to have them means tested. Everyone gets it, so there's no, you get it, I don't get it, I'm paying for you to sit on your bum. Because that's the truth. That's really how people do see it. And they look at people on welfare as lesser. And it's garbage, but it's the way that the system is created. And so I feel like that, I know a lot of people are like, oh, we should have all these like means tested benefits and universal basic income. But there are so many detriments to mean testing stuff. Like, even if you look at like SNAP, have you ever had a look at what's actually on the menu of SNAP? I can tell you, like, I had a snoop of it and it's not good. Like, it really is not, like, there's basically, you can't really get like any organic fruits or veg. It's all got to be like canned crap. It's all got to be like no full cream milk, no this, no that. Like, do we really want to put people through having to be told by the government what, like, you must buy this or you must buy that? Like, it's dehumanizing as shit. Like, wouldn't it be better to have enough empowerment of people that we can still create programs to empower people? Like, I prefer to see programs like financial programs and programs on life skills and on goal setting and stuff like that, and on, budgeting for a grocery shop and on nutrition and health and stuff like that. I think is immensely helpful. But means tested stuff is a real, like, there are so many like things wrong with means testing stuff. And I mean, we have it because there's like, without universal basic income, there's not really any other option except to just let people like die. And we're wealthy countries. I don't think we should just let people die. I think we should like give people the opportunity to empower themselves and give them a bit of hope and feel like they actually can create a life for themselves and know that they're not going to starve, and that, they're not going to like stuff up one little tiny thing and then have their welfare benefits cut off for a month, and then they're going to be eating like 2-minute noodles and condensed milk. So like, that's my like view on it. I really do think that it's so much better to have a universal basic income than it is to have means tested welfare. And in an ideal world, we'd have programs that are empowering people to make their own autonomous decisions. And we'd have like community stuff where we help each other out in the community and community programs. And then we'd have universal basic income. So that's my 2 bobs worth. Let me know what you think. I'm coming over to America really soon, like in a week and a bit. So I'm looking forward to it. All right, guys, have a good one.